Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, episode 82. July, right? Yeah, July 12th, 2022. It's easy to forget the date. It almost doesn't feel like summer outside, you know? You would never know that it's the middle of July. But
Yeah.
Jay, what's going on, man? Back in the lab.
Yeah, good, back and better than ever, baby. Just trying to get one in. We hadn't had a show in a while, and felt like it was a good time to catch up on a few things and get back into the lab, like you said. So yeah, man, doing good though. Yeah, it's a little warm outside. We got a little reprieve yesterday with some cloud coverage. It was kind of nice for a little bit, and then next day it's 105 or whatever. So
Well,
good stuff.
enjoy
Great
it.
times.
Enjoy this while we have it, because I think this Saturday and Sunday it's going to be 105-ish with that Saharan dust coming in. So
Gotta love it.
that's what you'll be. You think you hate the weather now, but in a few days, you're not going to. You're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. So
Can't wait. Can't wait to look back fondly.
I know. Oh, I don't think you're right. Oh, the good old days. But let's kick. I think there's only really one place for us to start off, and that is the national story. Arch Watch it's come to an end. It's over, and you know the world will never be the same at this point. I mean, it's a monumental decision. Arch Manning is committed to attending the University of Texas to further his studies and to play some football on the side. So I think I mean, we had talked. I wish we could go back. I'm sure we could. We can find out how far back we started talking about Arch as a possibility for Steve Sarkisian for the Texas program, what it would mean, what it would, long term, all that stuff. Well, here we are. He's committed. I'm sure we're going to get into some talk about the recruiting ramifications otherwise, because there has been we've gone from Arch Watch to now the Arch Effect, and we've had a little while to kind of let this digest and let this kind of sink in a little bit. Where are you with this Arch commitment, and then the resulting dominoes that have fallen since and will seemingly continue to fall as we get into football season and towards signing day?
One of the things that I always think about when Sarkisian brings in these guys is, like, we knew Mike, that was our friend Mike Holland, our Longhorn insider, Dr. Rhoda contributor. He mentioned from the jump, like, elite recruiter. That was like okay, what did we get, Mike? Elite recruiter is the first thing out, and you're seeing it now. Like, in spite of a 5-7 season that was horrific by every describable way imaginable, to be able to then still come through in the next year and say, all right, Arch, you know what we can do, you know what we're capable of, come on down to Austin, be a part of this, and let's go win something. For Sark to be able to land this fish truly proves that he is in the elite of elite in terms of college football recruiting. And there's the old saying, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. And when you start to get the Jimmies and the Joes like Arch Manning on the campus, the last time somebody that was ranked this way, that was recruited by the University of Texas and ended up on campus, was Vince Young. It's the only comparable recruit in terms of, like,
Quinn
ratings
Ewers,
and rankings.
another perfect score, but not that
exactly,
committed out of high school.
Sure, but
Right.
But the point is like, now that's a good segue, Kerry, is now you've got two of those guys in your QB room that are ranked as high as the scoring system goes, just like Vince Young was. So Longhorn fans have to feel good about where this quarterback room is sitting, and Sarkisian paying dividends even after that down season, to be able to work the portal and bring in an Arch Manning along with the rest of some of these recruits that we'll discuss here shortly, is
Right.
it's beyond impressive to me. And you just have to hope that if you're a Longhorn fan, that he can that extends over into game management and what the results are on
Exactly.
Saturdays this fall.
Exactly. Because 1 year in, you can still sell hope. To the fan base, to recruits, you can still sell that. And not that you can't do it after year 2, but it gets harder. Another 5-7 type season for this team this fall, it gets a whole hell of a lot harder to sell hope to recruits and to fans and all those things when now you put together 2 seasons of it. Not that I think that that's going to be what happens with this team this year, but like, to your point, you got to start winning games. You have to start performing on the field. You got to manage, and the talent seems to be, it's improved, and but yeah, that's going to be a subplot this entire season. Is this team going to go 12-0? No. But when there is going to be a loss, I know that this fan base is always even keeled and rational about these things. So like, I know if there's going to be a bad loss somewhere on this schedule, what is the reaction going to be? Oh no, here we go. Maybe Arch is going to decommit. Well, look, Georgia's still undefeated. Maybe he's going to decide this isn't the right fit. Oh, all those kinds of things. And like, is 8-4 good enough? And we'll get to this here as we approach college football. We have our preview show and get for actually break it down and kind of predict. But like, is 8-4, 7-5 good enough to kind of head off that type of doomsaying and negative recruiting that will surely follow? And that's where like, he's just got to put it together, man. Sark's just got to he's got to find a way to make this work. And I think he will. I like the assistant coaches he's brought in. I think it's stacking up well for him. And now he's getting the players at a pretty damn impressive clip.
You have to like what Sarkisian's doing in terms of looking like the CEO of a successful program. I think that's, and Mac Brown has said this while he was in Austin. You're not the head coach of a football team. You have to be a CEO of so many other things as well. And it looks like up to this point, everything aside from, obviously the on-field stuff last season, everything else is looking like he's a successful CEO. He's able to bring in experienced coaches onto his staff that can be there to guide him. When head coaches bring on other previous head coaches onto their staff, you get all that experience. And when you've got a room full of head coaches sitting there, the likelihood of figuring something out, maybe, you've got different viewpoints, you've got all that experience in the room, and Coach Sark is finding a way to surround himself with people that are going to make him better. And
innovative young coaches too. So, there's the Gary Patterson aspect of that. Like you mentioned, like former successful head coaches.
Right.
But then guys like Marion and Joyce, these innovative young coaches that are destined to be superstars, to have them in bouncing ideas. And that's what it's just, like you said, it's a great mix. It makes everybody in the room better.
Yeah. When you can combine that experience with the young guys, the up and comers, like you described, that they're got the rocket strapped to their back and they're just headed to the moon. Yeah. That's how you make yourself better as a coach. You're not just going to sit there and keep your guys in there, and that all of those things have met the mark, I think, for Coach Sark's tenure up to this point. Now, again, it's always just what can you do on a Saturday if the game day coaching doesn't improve, and mostly, on the defensive side of the ball has to be better, period, end of story. And some of these recruits that are coming in aren't afraid to mix it up and try to be those guys that can help get it over the hump. So I think if, we like to ask the question, is Texas any more back than the last time that we talked? And Kerry, would you say that Texas is a little bit more back
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
In a non like sarcastic, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like in a
Yep.
non facetious, joking kind of way. Like, yeah, I think Texas is more back now after the Arch commitment and the other commitments that have followed than before. I think it's something that had crossed my mind, back when this Arch discussion started a while back, and something I've seen mentioned since the commitment is the similarity to the feel of the Chris Sims commitment, where it was this opportunity for Mac recruiting, not to get over the hump necessarily, but it was such a big win recruiting wise for Mac that it created the momentum. There was that was the same class with Chris Sims and Corey Redding, and like, that class set the foundation to then go get a Vince Young, to then, build a program and win a national title and play for another, like, and this feels similar to that. And, it's we're talking 20 years ago, it's a different world, but it feels similar to, I mean, there's just so many different, so many, like, son of a NFL quarterback, successful NFL quarterback, out of state recruit, like, I don't know. It seems like it sets up really nice for a good cycle here for Texas. But, Mac was winning, when was he coming off of that 2000 season? What, a 10 win season, I think. I mean, because he won 10, I think it's a safe assumption given how many years in a row he won 10 games. But like, but also having a Heisman Trophy winner 2 seasons before, like, there was some success there already for Mac. And it didn't feel, if Mac missed out on Chris Sims at that point, it didn't feel like it was this like, the ship has sailed. It just was a boost to what he was already building, where with Sark, I think it's different. He needed this. I think he really needed this win recruiting wise, because, we're seeing all the other recruits that have now followed. I mean, Jay, you want to talk about any of those guys that have come in since Arch's commitment?
Well, I think offensively, you're looking at more skill position guys that are sort of following him. Jonte Cook, the second 5-star receiver. He's the kind of guy where if you got to win the big battles, right? In terms of the Arch Mannings, if you're going to turn the corner, but this is like that really just that tier just below, where you can't just win all the big ones. You've got to win some of the guys just in, like, if there's tier 1A, this is like 1B.
Exactly.
You've still got to win the battles for those 1B guys. And whether this is, because he did commit after Arch, if this is a direct, if the, correlation and causation thing is here, or if this is another Sark job of like, hey, you want to,
yep.
You see what we can do. Either, it doesn't matter at this point. But again, those are the kind of battles when you look at it, it's just like, this is on the right track. And right, like, we do joke about we're back, we do joke about that, but you're right in terms of like this feels like Texas is back in a sense of getting these victories for guys like Jonte Cook. And yeah, they pulled in some nice recruits over the past few years, in spite of maybe some failures on the field, and in spite of maybe some of the coaches in the previous regime not being able to get out of their own way, but that's another show for another day. And I just feel like that it's a Sadir Mitchell, 4-star defensive lineman, 6'5", 335, number 4 in the state. Like, those, again, you recruiting Texas, great again, not allowing people to come in and poach all of this in-state talent. It's Derek Williams, the 5-star safety, 35 nationally and number 6 in the state. Like, you're winning those top 10 battles again.
Well,
and
it changes the perception,
it's not
right?
Just one. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where it goes from, being in the news cycle, being, you can go, like, Texas would make national news for a monkey bite, losing to Kansas. Essentially for all the wrong reasons. Even with the move to the SEC announcement, it was like, oh, the perception, oh, look at Texas destroying a conference and like all these kinds of, the typical like kind of stuff. But then an Arch Manning commitment and the string of commitments that follow that, the perception changes. It's oh, the Mannings would never send, the heir apparent to the Manning throne to a, raging shit show.
Mm-hmm.
So they must see something they like. And now all of a sudden it turns into, well, Texas might be something to deal with by the time that the program's in the SEC. It changes the perception. And it's in the new, Texas getting run in the news cycle for, positive things of like, oh, looks like Texas is starting to get the Death Star going again before it moves to the SEC. Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where recruits go, okay, maybe I will take this a bit seriously. And then they listen to the recruiting pitch a bit more. And the next thing you know, they go, all right, I'm sold. But I just, man, as hopeful as it all is, it's got to get put together on the field, because all this positive news, all this positive development, all that stuff can get blown away by what happens on the field on Saturdays.
Yeah,
and
none of it matters, right?
Yeah, none of it matters unless you can win games, because then it goes right back to look at Texas underperforming. And that's the only thing, honestly, that gives me any kind of pause about this run right now in recruiting, has been like, if you take the Manning name out of it, it kind of like, yeah, I feel like we've seen it before, because the previous regimes did have some good recruiting classes. They just never got developed. And we just haven't seen Sark. There's not enough material there for us to pass judgment on whether or not he's going to develop talent at Texas. So there's a cautiousness that I have, at least, but it's hard not to be positive though, right? I mean, like, how can you look at it and be like, go just like, oh, it's still all going to suck? Like, you can't.
Yeah, great point. That's a great way to put it, man.
Yeah.
Like, how
You can
how
be
can
as
you not
pessimistic
look
as
at
you
it?
can be
Yeah,
and still look at this and
we
say,
are at
well,
times. We are at
yeah,
times, like it, but we also can look at this and say, hey, they're in a better spot now than they were, and it's easy to see that this is not
exactly.
really up for debate. You've got national guys that used to work for rivals that now are putting out things saying like, I've seen some of these other quarterbacks in this class, and maybe Arch Manning isn't the clear-cut number one anymore. And it's just like, it never fails. Somebody is going to feel the need to sort of try to undercut something like this when Texas gets this. And it's just a matter of anybody can look at this and see that Texas is farther along now and moving in the right direction in terms of how the coaching staff's being put together, what Belmont's looking like right now, how the recruiting trail is looking. All of these things are starting to come together. And once we see it, once we get there on Saturdays in the fall and we see what this finished product is going to look like. I mean, again, Steve, this isn't going to be Steve Sarkisian's last year, no matter even if he goes 5-7,
No.
they're not firing him. They won't fire him, even with 5 wins. They won't fire him this year. They're not going to.
No.
But
the pressure would be, it's.
Yeah, it would be turned up after that then. And like you said, everything is sort of amplified. So it's just a matter of getting to Saturdays. We like to say that all the time. Just get to Saturdays. Let me see what this looks like on the field and go from there. So it's a lot. There is something to be excited about, though, if you're a Longhorn fan.
Well, and I did want to mention, I think you hit on something with, the situation that Belmont's in. And I think there's a lot of, over the years, there's been a lot of analysis and questioning and curiosity about this. So, this kind of what is the reasoning behind, why can't Texas football get its act together? Why can't, what's going on with the basketball program, or, these other, it's got to be something inherent to the athletic program, right? Well, you don't win back-to-back Directors Cups, knocking Stanford off of a 25-year run, winning that for most successful athletic department in the country 2 years running now, if you don't have your act together. And football and, to a degree, basketball seem to be the outliers. So this whole concept of like, oh, it's just a toxic athletic department and situation over there. I don't buy that. I think maybe in the past there could have been some of that, but to look at the situation now with Chris Del Conte and what's going on in the athletic department and say that there's some kind of toxic negative atmosphere there, I just don't know if I buy that, because that's not bearing out in all the other programs on campus.
And you see with that, with Chris Del Conte, like this is the type of leader that he is, being able to get the people into positions in these coaching roles that are his type of people that fit in with their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. And now that Steve Sarkisian's in place, it feels like there's a possibility for that circle to be complete in terms of hires that Chris Del Conte has made or has sort of nurtured along in his time as athletic director.
Well, if anything, he at least provides them with whatever they need to allow them to shoot themselves in their own feet if they need to.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where like he's at least running an athletic department that removes any doubt that any blame for not being successful can't be squared anywhere else except solely on the shoulders of the person that runs that program. That's it.
Yeah. Got to dig that.
If Sark is a failure here, it's because of Sark. It's not going to be because of meddling in the athletic department or some kind of toxic culture and these things that people have been throwing around for years and years. Not to say that wasn't there before. I'm just saying,
right.
You know, when you look at the department now, I don't think the athletic department has been in this great of shape from top to bottom in quite a long time. I mean, it's hard to think of when I know the big revenue sports are, we'd like to see more obviously out of football. And I think basketball there's a little bit more that's left to be desired there. And we'll see what Chris Beard can do going forward. But you look everywhere else. And I don't know if from top to bottom, it's ever been this consistently good and like really, really good, like national championships. And, baseball team just made another trip to Omaha and it was viewed as a letdown. Like, I just found that interesting how you mentioning the situation Belmont's in, just to kind of say like, that blame I think can be removed. I think that at least for now, and it's not ever going to stay this way, but like Sark's got everything he needs to succeed.
Yep.
He's got full backing. He's got everything he needs, and it's solely on his shoulders now to make this thing work. And you just got to do it.
And if we can feel like, that's been the missing piece in this athletic department for a while is, do you feel that there is truly that autonomy there? And that's another one of the things as a CEO that Matt Brown mentioned, a few times, is that you're not just pleasing the fans, you're pleasing the big money donors. There's so many other things that go into being a head coach at the University of Texas football team and maybe the way that this is being run now has still allowed for some of that, but it's not overtaking the entire job and being more than it needs to be. And again, like you said, knowing that the athletic department probably is not to blame for your failures. I feel like as a coach, that has to be a freeing feeling to know like, hey, this is going to be on me. Everything, I'm going to be able to drive this as far as I can take it. And if I'm successful, it's because I was able to be the driver. And if I wasn't, it's because I failed at it. I think that's a great point to make, man. And I feel like you can't have a better feeling, I don't think, as a coach, just knowing like your fate is in your own hands. And when you hire the right people, you get the results that you want in that situation. And it's yet to be determined if Sark will be the guy here at Texas for the football team. But again, he's doing all of those other things correctly to set himself up for success now. Does it translate, in the fall?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this wasn't the case before, and we've done plenty of dissection on what went wrong with previous coaches, but like to be able to, for Sark to be able to sit back and say, oh, I'm not having to deal with someone like Steve Patterson that's going to prevent me from truly hiring the types of assistants that I want. So I'm already behind the eight ball in that regard. Or I was hired by an interim AD and Mike Perrin that, a rushed kind of thing. And, I just brought my own, I didn't have anybody above me to basically keep me in check when I wanted to hire all my buddies as assistant coaches. You have somebody that demands excellence, but is gives you full autonomy to run the program. If Sark just wanted to hire, his buddies, I think CDC would have said, "Oh, we got a bigger checkbook than that. Like, let's go big here." And puts that kind of pressure on in a good way. But yeah, it's we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be a fascinating season, I think. Fascinating season. So I'm really looking forward to our preview show on this.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, man, let's transition a little bit here. Let's get into Austin FC. We got a big one tonight. I mean, what to say about this team at this point? They're second in the West. I think tonight, actually, it's the only game happening in MLS tonight, with Houston coming to town. I believe, I don't have the table in front of me, but I believe with a win, Austin will go back top of the league tonight until, we'll see what LAFC does in their next match. But man, they're starting to build some separation in the standings and starting to get comfortably ahead of teams in the Western Conference. It's starting to look at this rate, which is amazing to say, given, how we've discussed this team early in the season, how we discussed this team going into the season. And it almost feels like, if this team isn't hosting a playoff game and isn't finishing at least, in the upper half of the Western Conference, that something's going wrong. Because, it's just amazing to me after what this team did on the road last season to see what they're doing on the road this year. It's just, it's incredible.
We keep waiting on like the slide, right? Like, we keep talking about, okay, now how will this team respond when there is a little bit of, the other side of the coin here. And you look at going to the Galaxy and losing, getting just beaten down 4-1. And then the next match was a couple of weeks later, friendly against Pachuca, lose 4-1. So then your first MLS match after that long break is against Montreal. You go across the border, you get a red card, you're playing down a man, and you still find a way to win that match.
To one of the better, a playoff team in the East, a good Montreal team.
Yeah, a solid squad on the road. And you got, so after, what that shows me is the Galaxy loss. And yeah, it's a friendly, it's Pachuca, it's a good side that they were playing against there. But also, like, you don't want to necessarily lose 4-1 at home in a friendly. So how do you respond from that, right? And how they've responded is 13 points out of a possible 15 in their next 5 matches, including 3 road wins here when you're just in a row. Get out of the friendly confines of Q2 and to get on the road. And it's like, now people have to take this team seriously. If they weren't before, they need to, because it's not just they're really good at home type of a squad. This
team might be better on the road than they are at home.
And it's amazing how well they've played on the road in this recent stretch. And now, coming back to Q2 tonight to face the Dynamo. And like you said, with a win, we'll go to the top of the table at the end of the night. Houston has fallen off a little bit after a stronger start. But still a team that can score some goals in bunches. And if you're making mistakes, and it's just, again, it's like, okay, how do you respond now? You've been playing really well on the road, and now you're back home. Change of scenery, change of environment, all that stuff, and it's your first of 2 straight Copa Tejas matches here in a row. And how do you go into that? But there's just so many big things, so many reasons why they've had these successes, man. But for me, it's just they're just playing like they're playing like a championship contender.
Absolutely,
right now.
They absolutely are. And with the way that they're playing on the road, I mean, hell, at this rate, they may not have a road game until potentially, if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't have a road game until facing off against LAFC in the Western Conference Final, which, oh, by the way, they won there earlier this season too. And a, fantastic, biggest win of the season was going into LA and getting that result. But like tonight's going to be interesting for me because I don't really know what to expect out of Houston tonight. And they've struggled a little bit, but they just got Hector Herrera in, the Mexican international, who is going to help them out a lot. I think. I think he's something that they've needed. But we'll see how he adjusts. He came on and played well against against FC Dallas at the weekend, but what's interesting with Houston for me is they're coming off of a big Copa Tejas match at home this past weekend. Emotional, a match that got stopped because of and delayed because of discriminatory chants in the stadium at Houston. You had Ferreira for Dallas score in injury time to what made it look like was going to be Dallas getting out of there with a 2-1 win. Cans and everything flying, emotions running high, just for Houston to come back, down, the latest goal scored in MLS history. I think it was like 111th minute or something like that, because of all the time that was added on because of the stoppage, because of the chance. Basically at the buzzer, they get a point out of that. Super emotional, hot night, all those kinds of things. And I wonder what, meanwhile, you had Austin just go to Atlanta and just put together a clinical performance with a rotated squad and in a dome, and that's where, to me, this could go one of two ways. Like Houston could be coming out off the high off of that result against Dallas, which could rejuvenate their season. It can make them believe a little bit, they were able to pull a point out of that game when it looked lost. And they've got a new designated player now that is going to, seems to take the leadership role. But are they just going to be gassed? It's going to be another hot night out there. And you just wonder, like, physically, they dumped everything that they could into trying to get that result against FC Dallas. Where are they going to be at physically and mentally coming into Q2 tonight? If Austin shows up and plays their game, I don't know how much that matters. But you kind of get to the point with Austin, as you do with teams that do start, putting together runs of wins. And we haven't quite seen it yet, I don't think, with this team. Do we know, like, there's going to be a point where do we need to be concerned about if they start to believe their own hype a little bit? And I think there's been enough letdowns for this team this season. You mentioned the LA Galaxy match where they went, they took a lead in that game and then just completely collapsed. And there's been enough times where they've kind of been punched in the face a little bit to where they've had to, they've gone, okay. Now just recenter it, reset it, and stay the course. But is this setting up like a I don't know, like trap game? Does this feel, what is your feel going into tonight? Because I do think there's going to be some point of the season where they do try to kind of roll the ball out there thinking that they're just going to beat somebody, and they don't.
Oh, it's bound to happen. Yeah, that's just how it works, right? You get a little big for your britches and you show up and you just forget that you have to actually play, these matches, and nothing's going to be handed to you. But it just feels like, I don't know if it does happen. It almost feels like it's going to be like a first half where they come out and give up 3 or 4 right in a bunch, and then it gets corrected at halftime, and then they move on from it, because it's what Alex Ring, as the captain, is not letting that stuff fly. Like, is he perfect? Is he a perfect footballer? No, he's not. But
that's Felipe. That's
yes,
Felipe Martins.
Yes.
So that's,
yeah, exactly. But he's not perfect, but he doesn't expect you to be perfect. It's just a matter of the effort that he always is asking of his mates. And like, how do you he's not allowing this team to sink into any level. And that's when, like, has he scored a ton of goals? Does he have a ton of assists? No, but it's like, just like Danny Pereira, like, what those two have meant in the midfield to this team up to this point when Pereira's making good
Not
decisions.
suspended,
Yeah,
which
when
he'll
he's
be back
making better
tonight.
decisions,
So
which is big, You know, I think we'll see Wolf out wide again to start. It'll be interesting to see how Josh Wolf treats the winger situation for me tonight, especially on the left side.
well, I
that we've
think
seen.
Washington Carrozzo should. I think he'll be in the squad tonight. He traveled with the team to Atlanta. There was talk of him being on the bench and being in the squad, but I think Carrozzo could. I would not be surprised if he makes an appearance tonight. I think
Well,
he's
that's
got too much to his game to not to at this point.
Washington Carrozzo, of course, is signed about less than a week ago. Like, I think it wasn't that long ago that they signed
No.
Carrozzo, and one of these transfer window signings. And there's some other whispers going around, but you know, Carrozzo is right now the premier signing in this transfer window, I believe. And like you were saying, Kerry, we'll see action pretty quickly here, whether it's tonight and coming off the bench, but he will probably be in the team, like you said. So, yeah, I mean, Ethan Finley, you know, like a couple of goals here and is, you know, scored some right place, right time sort of things. And, you know, how do you reward that? You know, they've got a lot.
Right.
It's a good problem to have for Josh Wolf to have to make these decisions in terms of, okay, like when these guys have been on there producing, but these are my guys. Like, I got to get my guys on here. And now you have Carrozzo again on the wing that's going to take up that's going to eat away minutes. And it's just, this is turning into a deep side, Kerry. And as for a young manager like Josh Wolf, it's got to feel good to be able to look at that bench and know, like, okay, I've got options any single night, no matter what. And we can play the way that we want to play and feel good about it.
Well, I just hope that they don't, and it's been kind of a bad habit at home, go down 2-0 and have to fight their way back. You know, the Dallas match, go down 2-0 in the second half. They found a way to come back and get a point out of it. Orlando, a little while back, go down 2-0. Orlando has 2 sendings off. I mean, just complete madness, but they find a way to come back and get it. Colorado on the road, on this road trip that we just discussed, go down 2 early on, come back and get out of Denver with a 3-2 win. And that's where if there's anything that I can say that needs to be corrected, it's that. As good as this team is and as like resilient as they are, especially at home, you know, Copa Tejas match, a chance to really kind of pin Houston back in the standings. Come out of the gates. They don't, and that's my one criticism I feel like with some of these matches is Josh Wolf kind of tries to come out. They're a little too pragmatic in how they approach things in the first half. You don't need to go down 2-0 before changing the strategy and saying, okay, bring on Gite, bring on Hosen or whoever, and now we got to go after it. This team scores enough goals. They should be able to come out of the gates and score on these teams early and just finish them off. And that's what I want to see. If they come out playing too conservative tonight, Houston's good enough to make this team pay. Everybody in the West is.
Yeah.
And I don't like calling it luck because they find their way back into these games. They press the right buttons. But you can't keep playing with fire like that every time. And come out and just try to put Houston to the sword. Don't try to go, well, let's get it to the second half and, you know, 0-0, we'll make some changes then. But
no, I agree.
Know.
I agree, but I think that speaks to what I was saying earlier. It was like, okay, we're down 2-0. That's it. Put your foot down and come back and play. And like that's the sort of thing that we've seen. That's the sort of thing that we've come to expect, right? Is you get down early. If you get down early, you find a way to fight your way back in. And that's, to me, is like one of the biggest reasons that this team is a championship contender, is because they have the will to, even if they start off poorly, they have the leadership on this team to be able to fight back. And yeah, there's going to be a game where they just get the brakes beaten off of them and you just chalk it up and you move on. This is professional sports. It happens to every single team. It will happen. Sure, it will happen. But again, like how do you come back from that and can you show that enough times, like you were describing, like let's be the aggressor coming out of the gate.
Exactly.
Let's be the instigator, not the responder, not the person that's going to have to come back and use all of our energy to come back. Let's get ahead and force the issue and control the pace how we want to. And that's what you look for here as they look to grow and evolve as a young team in terms of playing together and learning each other, and young in a head coach that is still learning his way around an improving league, especially at the top of MLS. The quality has improved dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think you're really starting to see this league come into its own, and that quality of play, like I said, at the top of it is becoming more and more impressive. So for Austin FC to be in that conversation right now, it lets me know that, again, from the front office with Claudio Reyna to the coaches with Josh Wolf and his whole staff and everything every way that they're running that operation, it feels like a contender at this point, and a club that will continue to be that way for a long time. Just gives that feel off, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're officially in the second half of the season now, and yeah, I think the sample size is large enough this year to be able to now say, because remember a few months ago we were saying, this is all great. We get into that month of May with that brutal run of games, and let's see where this team is after that. And they took some punches in there, but here they are, the chance to go not just top of the West, but top of the entire league tonight. Well, man, you want to put a prediction on tonight? What are you thinking?
3-1 Verde. I'm thinking like they will get out early in this one against Houston. I liked your point about just how much energy they had to use in their last match, and coming into this one with Austin FC, just a buzzsaw right now. I do feel like they get out early. Might give one up, at some point. The defensive mistakes have still been an issue. Stuver's been solid in goal when he's been called upon. We haven't had that Stuver meltdown recently, which if we can avoid that in a match like tonight, that'd be great.
I just had a vision of him trying to pass it out of the back and it getting oh God.
I mean, they have to avoid that. They've been good out of the back lately, and just have to avoid that. But I'm gonna go 3-1 Verde tonight. What do you want to say about this one?
I'm thinking 3-2. 3-2 is the 3-2 Austin is the number I've had in my head. I don't think this is going to be Houston going up 2-0 like other teams have been doing recently, but I think it's going to be a 3-2 that feels more in control than that. And, I think I feel like it'll be something similar. Like you're saying, Houston will have one, it'll be 3-1, and then maybe they nick a late goal and make it 3-2. And maybe it feels, heading into injury time a little bit, kind of like, ride it out a little bit. But I think it's not going to feel as dire. You know what I mean? It'll be one of those like, all right, well, everything felt pretty under control except for those last 5 minutes. then it kind of goes crazy. But I think they just need to get back in the winning ways at home. Get back winning at home, because it's been a little tough to come by the wins at home lately. And when was the last win at home? Now I
gotta go all the way back to Vancouver in April. Haven't won at home since April.
Yeah.
Let's draw. Yeah. Wow. The Fortress. Let's see what happens tonight, man. We'll be there. We'll both be there.
We'll be in the house. Yeah.
You'll be in the supporter section. I'll be up in 311 on the terrace, and
that's a good view up there.
Yeah, haven't had a chance to catch a match from that angle. We're really looking forward to that tonight. We'll be out there at Q2 screaming our heads off, and hoping to get 3 points out of tonight, and like you were saying, finish on top of the table after the evening's up. So yeah, only match in town tonight, only for the whole league. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this game, and Austin has an opportunity to make a statement, and I think that they will.
Yep. I hope so, at least. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's going to be a hot one. I'm just not looking forward to the weather. But,
will be warm.
It is what it is. Yeah. We'll manage. Hydrate.
Yep.
Well, man, this has been good. Guess we'll go ahead and call it here. And yeah, man, enjoyed it. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Listen, everybody, we appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one. Look cool.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.
Falling on 6th on a Saturday. Can the